Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jaden Irwin, and today we're going to be going through part 3 of the Astro Crash Course. So if you haven't been following along, definitely watch the first 2 parts. Those are going to cover the basics of using the .astro file format and how that all works. We went through how to set up images and use those images from both your public directory and from your source directory. Setting up links, and then the last one we actually went through components. So you can use a React component, a Svelte component, and a lit component all in that same file. And then the lit component's actually happening through a script tag. And then the last part of that was actually the blog posts. So we're going to kind of pick up where the blog post left off. You notice that our blog page does automatically list the blog posts, links, and titles. What we're going to do though is slightly branch from that, and let's talk about the top level await feature of Astro. If you haven't followed JavaScript too much, or you're new to JavaScript, there's this idea that you can, at the top of this file, you can run an await, and we won't go fully into async await and asynchronous computing, but basically the way that this would work with an await, we can go and fetch content. We can go fetch JSON or go fetch information from an API, pull it back into our Astro website, and use that data straight inside of the Astro website, which is really cool. And I'll show you a little bit more than just like a sample. I know a lot of times people just do a pretty basic API to just pull information, but I'm going to use a real API. In this case, I kind of did a little bit of setup. This is just a news.astro page, and you should kind of know already how to do that from the previous videos. But inside the news.astro, we have import base layout from base layout. And then I already set up this category, and you'll see technology is the category, and we're going to use that. So let's go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to break down how this works. So const response equals await. So we're awaiting information from this fetch, and this fetch function is going to go reach out to the New York Times API, and it's going to get the top stories under a specific category. And the cool thing is we can actually set that category from one spot, which is cool. And then you'll notice that I'm using the title also with the category. So the title will update automatically with whatever category we pass in. And definitely take a look at the New York Times API, play around with it. It's a really cool setup to just go and sign in, create an API key, and start calling off of the New York Times. You can get a lot of information, and it's a really great resource to start learning how to work with APIs. At least it was for me. And then this category, behind that we have the .json. So we're going to get JSON information, JSON data from this New York Times API. And then this is going to query off of our API key. And the API key I generated, I put it in a .env file. You can do something simpler than this though. I mean, there are other APIs out there that don't require an API key. So if New York Times worked that way, you could kind of, let's go back. You could kind of block this part out in a sense if you didn't require an API key on whatever API you're using. But this does. And then this is a really cool way that you can keep your API key private, so it doesn't actually get sent out on your repository or sent out on the front end. This all happens server side. It all happens when you're rendering the website and creating a website. And then this is an import.meta.env, so you can kind of understand what that is doing. It's importing from the env file, and then the name of that key inside the env file is public New York Times API key. So we have this response, but we still need to turn that into data, right? So what we're going to get from that is articles. So I'm going to copy and paste this over. So const articles equals await response. So not only are we awaiting the fetch to go and get the data, but we are awaiting the response, right? So we're awaiting response, and then .json. So we're going to get that JSON. And then what we have down here, I have this kind of stringify if you want to see how this works. Let's go ahead and comment this chunk out real quick. And let's go to our news page. It's a / news. And there's a lot of data. That is all just raw JSON. And that's something that I like to do. I like to just put in these brackets, json.stringify. And then you can start to see what's coming through. So if I go back here, articles, const articles equals await. So I'm stringifying all of the articles. And if you look at this, we status OK, copyright, New York Times, all rights reserved. But then there's this results right here. And that is an array of all of the articles. So really, const articles, we're going to map over results of the articles. And then if you look at that, it'll refresh real quick, and there's just the article's information. So you can see there's the title of the article, there's the subsection, doesn't look like there is a subsection on that one. There's the URI, there's the URL. So let's just use the title and URL in our example here. Let's go ahead and get rid of this JSON stringify. I'll leave it commented out. And then we're going to map over articles.results, right? Because we want the results array. Map over that for each article. We're going to do a list item inside this unordered list. And then that's an href, article.title. Let's put in an href right here. Article.url. And look at that. So we have latest technology news from the New York Times, right? And then if we click on one of those, don't really know what this article is about, just clicked on a random one. But yeah, there you go. We have links to the latest technology news. And I think art is another one. So we could do art right here. Let's change that. And let's refresh. Looks like it's not liking that. All right, so it helps to go and look at the API documentation. It looks like arts is what we were looking for. So let's change that to arts. We'll save that and let's go back. There we go. Arts is the section or like the category, right? They call them sections inside the API. Let's comment that. And there we go. A whole new list of articles. Arts is another one. Home would be like the home page. So let's do that one too, just to show how it's working super fast, fetching all of that data from New York Times right away. And there's a whole lot of use cases for this, right? This is just one API. This is the New York Times API. There's weather APIs. There's all kinds of APIs out there. And you could use that data inside your static Astro website. So super cool. Just an example of how to use New York Times with it. And I like tech, so I'm going to change this back to technology. Copilot's fighting me a little bit. And there we go. There's the latest tech news from New York Times. Cool. So that is our first topic of how to use the fetch command inside Astro, or the fetch function. And this is the actual like JavaScript fetch function, which is really cool. They're not doing a whole lot of fancy stuff around this. It really is just a basic fetch, which is awesome. I've heard too that this actually works on older versions of Node that maybe didn't support fetch, which is pretty cool. But you might have to fact check me on that one. I use normally the latest version of Node. So let's go ahead and move on though to our next topic. So that's going to be components in Markdown. And so this is one that I didn't quite cover in the last video. But if you're going into a blog post, then we can actually import those special buttons that we talked about in the last one. So we go back to components, special buttons, and then our special button.jsx file. So that's the React component. So just to show how this works, you do import special button. It would look a lot like it did over inside of our components.astro, right? But remember, this is a relative import, so you got to make sure that you get that import right. Let's go to our post one, and we're going to do all the way up to components. And then we're going to go over to special button.jsx. Perfect. So we have that import, and then under this image, let's just do a click me button. Just like we did on the other client load. We'll close that, and then we're going to do click me with an exclamation point. Let's go back to our blog, and that was on the first blog post. Let's make sure we've got our, always check your imports, special buttons. Perfect. Example blog. There we go. There's that click me button, and we know that this is actually loading React on page using the React APIs and everything. If we hit click me, and that loads JavaScript. So there you go. You clicked me and it shows that little alert. So you could have a very complex React component loaded just like that inside your Markdown. Do an import at the top, and then special button client load. So client visible, client media, all of those ones work right there. Super cool that you can use React, Svelte, lit components all through SSR and import those into your Markdown. So that was another topic that I wanted to cover on this one, kind of a continuation of the last part. And then the other one that we're going to go through is on this blog page, I just did a placeholder page size 100 on the paginate, right? But what if we want to make it, let's say 1, so 1 article per page? Well, so if we do that, now we lost our second blog post, and we want to get it back, right? So you probably wouldn't do this for 1, but let's say you have 20 blog posts. You maybe don't want to list all 20 of those blog posts on that blog page. So what we would do for that is actually create a paginator component. And this is code that's going to come from one of my starters. So I have the minimal starter, and shout out to, I'm not sure what their name is, but they actually did the pull request for it. So I'm super thankful for the open source aspect of that minimal starter. Someone said, hey, it would be cool to have a paginator on there. So that's where this is coming from. And I think they actually pulled it from Astro's examples. But anyways, shout out to them for helping us out on this. So what we're going to do, I'm going to copy this paginator component. And that's all I called it, paginator.astro inside of our components. Let's paste that. And then just to quickly explain, so we have our page. The page is going to come in to this component, class pagination, and then that is just a link. Go to previous, go to next, right? And then page.url.next, page.url.previous. So what we're going to do is use that in our blog page. So let's import paginator from our components, paginator.astro, just like that. We're going to put it under the list, and good old Copilot comes in handy sometimes. Paginator page equals page. Perfect. So now, yeah, we should see a next link, and that will go to our next page. So you can imagine if we have 50 blog posts, we could do our page size of 10, and let's go back here. We could do our page size of 10, and then it would only list 10 before it shows that next link. So super cool. Let's go back to page size 1. So this is using the paginator, but yeah, so next, previous, and it'll paginate, however many pages of blog posts that you have. So that is the pagination on a blog. Super useful if you already are, maybe you're moving your blog over to Astro. Hopefully that's helpful to just really quickly use their paginate function inside of your get static paths function. So return paginate, page size 1, and then pass that page to the paginator. Perfect. The next piece that I wanted to cover is RSS. So again, for the blogs, you got to make sure that you have that RSS feed. Sounds like there's some cool stuff going on around RSS feeds. I've heard, being able to follow an RSS feed inside of your browser is pretty cool. And you know, other people might be using other RSS feed watchers or feedlies and all of that. So let's set up an RSS feed on our blog. That's super easy to do with Astro as well. So what we're going to do is do an RSS prop, and then below here, right before our return, that's where I'm going to copy this over. And this is, I'm not even going to lie, this is stripped straight from Astro's examples. So RSS, and then that takes in all of this. So the title, the description, the custom data, and then items. So sorted posts is the name of our sorted post right here, right? So it's mapping over each sorted post, creating a title, description, link, and the publish date. Item.date. So remember, we named it date there. So that might be a little gotcha. Make sure that you have that date and the URL and all of that pass through, which maybe that's a good thing. So we're not using the URL right here. Let's make sure, let's see if that works. So we'll go to RSS right here, destination. They have a couple of helpful comments here too. So it defaults to /RSS.xml. You could change that to feed.xml if you want, or /blog/feed.xml, right? So wherever you want that RSS feed to exist on the build. Let's see, I don't know if, I think this only happens on the build, so I'll have to kill my server real quick. npm run build. And oh yeah, so this is the next piece. So build options is another thing that it wants. So it's saying, hey, we're trying to generate an RSS, but build options.site is missing from the Astro config MJS file. Talked about this a little bit in the last video. This is that config file with the renderers. Above that, we're going to do a build options object. Looks just like this, build options, and then an object, and you have site. That's where you pass in your site. So this would be whatever your URL of your website is. So let's go ahead and run that build again. Should be pretty quick. There's not too many pages, less than 3 seconds. That's pretty good. And then we have our dist right here that it spits out our site. And remember, we did back in our blog page, we did /blog feed.xml. So let's go to /blog feed.xml. And is it going to format? It's probably not going to format for me. I can try. No, I don't have an XML formatter. That's okay. So let's do description. I could actually open this in Chrome as well too. There we go. Perfect. A little bit easier to read. So RSS version 2. Our channel, our title, so Jaden's blog, that came from, let's go back to VS Code here. That came from right here, the title of our feed, description of our feed, the custom data, all of that right there. And then, yep, it pulled over example.com is what we were using. And there you go, example.com /blog /post-1, post-2. So it's mapping through all of those blog posts, generating an RSS feed for you. And then the cool thing is you sort of get a sitemap with it too. So if we go back, you might have already noticed too. If we go back here and we go to our dist folder, let's go ahead and collapse the blog. You should see sitemap.xml right there. So let's again reveal this in Finder. We will open that with Chrome. There you go. example.com /blog, and it's got all of our pages right there. So that is really all I had for you today. I am going to cover categories in blog posts. I know that's been something that someone's asked for in a previous video. It's a little bit more of a in-depth topic, and I think it requires its own video, going through categories, adding the categories to blog posts, and then also creating pages automatically based off those categories. So that will be, I'm thinking, the last video in this series. But hopefully this one was helpful, covers some of the more miscellaneous topics of Astro and getting closer to the hosting. I'll give you kind of a little sneak peek of the hosting if you want to give it a shot yourself, or you're just kind of asking that question, how do I host this site that I've already moved over to Astro? I would recommend going to docs.astro.build. You can also go to astro.build. Shout out to their brand new website. Looks great. Take a look at it. They did an awesome job with it. But if you go to their docs, which is docs.astro.build, you'll see that we have deploy to the web on that left bar, like this side menu. And they do a great job of breaking down the different ways that you can host your Astro website. You'll see that there's Travis CI, there's GitLab Pages, there's Netlify. Probably the one that I would recommend is Netlify if you're new to all of this. They make it so easy to just connect your GitHub account and click a couple of buttons, sign into an account, hit deploy, and they deploy a site for you. But yeah, these other ones are pretty straightforward too. Firebase, I've used Firebase on some projects myself. Super awesome, fast hosting. A little bit more involved, but most of these other ones besides Netlify are a little bit more involved. Vercel, another quick one. Just sign in, connect your GitHub account, and you'll map your GitHub repository of your website to that project, and they'll do most of the work for you. But yeah, so that's hosting. And if you have any questions, definitely let me know. If there are any topics that you want to see on that last part besides the categories, definitely let me know. I'm happy to get that covered. But I feel like I've covered most of what's going on inside the docs as far as getting set up and getting a new site out with Astro. So thanks you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.